As I mentioned at the start, included in your bulletin this morning is a survey of sorts, and it lists all the different ways that you can get involved at Bethany. For those on the live stream, there will be a QR code probably appearing on the screen right about now. That will take you to an online version of the survey. And I encourage all of you to just take a moment at some point this morning to fill that out. Think about, if you could, engage more regularly in one of our small groups or Bible studies, or maybe by giving your time to one of our ongoing ministries, or by sharing the story of Bethany with someone outside of the community. That's how the survey is structured. And I'm asking you to fill this out this morning, not because Bethany is struggling and we desperately need more people to keep things going. No, I'm asking you to do this because I really think that Bethany is a special place, and that by being more involved, all of our faith can be more positively impacted. More fully engaging in the life of a church inherently draws us closer to God. And given how difficult things seem in the world today, I believe that we need connection with God now more than ever. There's the news about the attacks in Israel that took place yesterday, and the growing unrest in the Middle East. There's the changing of leadership and confusion in Congress. There's inflation and gas prices. There's mental health struggles and just the day-to-day difficulties of our human existence. The truth is, life is uncertain. It's scary and it's hard out there, and sometimes by practicing our faith, we better prepare ourselves for the struggles that await us each and every week. In our first reading from Philippians this morning that Liz did such a great job reading for us, the Apostle Paul writes about how he has foolishly put so much trust in certain things that the world values. But now, Paul says, after living through a difficult and transformative moment, now Paul has come to see that all of these other pursuits of his are rubbish compared to knowing Christ. His connection to Christ has changed his perspective on the world. Throughout this sermon this morning, I'm going to share with you multiple perspectives from Bethany members about how their connection with this church has changed the way they look at the world. Our first was recorded by Bethany member Kira Morgan. Kira, go ahead and wave for us. She's right up here. She's our sacristan this morning. Kira's only been a member at Bethany for about a year, but listen to her story and about how one simple practice of faith completely changed Kira's way of looking at the world. It'll appear on the illustrator now.
Hi, I'm Kira. Like many people in 2020, I found myself in a hospital room, and I found myself praying for the first time in my adult life. But I was not praying for my loved one. I kept hearing coding over the intercom, and I found myself praying for the children they were talking about, and praying for their families, and willing God to help them. And I found that that was not the act of a non-believer. So to my surprise, I left that hospital very confused and a Christian. And so I started attending church online at first, and kind of Goldilocks around until I found that returning to the faith of my childhood, Lutheranism, was where my heart was. And so my husband and I attended Bethany online until we got up the guts to attend in person and to join the community. And as soon as that first service was over, I said to Pastor Nate, that was not nearly as scary as I thought it would be. And he laughed, but I meant it. And my husband and I joined a couple months after, and as many of you know, I've become very, very involved in the church. And my cornerstone was set in 2022, but I plan on being a part of Bethany for the rest of my life, God willing. So, thank you, Bethany. You have been a blessing to me and will always be the place where I found my home.
I keep asking Pastor Gary if we can change our slogan to, "It's not as scary as you think." But as we heard from Kira in this video, amid a very difficult time in her life, Kira didn't know what else to do other than to pray for the needs that were surrounding her at that moment. And that simple practice led to other practices, and now here she is today, joyful and changed and committed to a new way of life in this place. It's faith like this that is the cornerstone of our congregation. When we connect with Christ, it changes the very way we look at the world. It changes how we spend our time, how we spend our money, the media we consume, the books we read, the people we hang out with. Connection with Christ, involvement in a church, really can change all of this within a person. It becomes the cornerstone of your life on which everything else is then built. I have another perspective on all this for you. This one was filmed by our current council president, Dave Craven. And Dave, as you hear, has been around Bethany just a little bit longer than Kira. And he shares his own perspective on how this place has been a cornerstone for his family and his faith.
Hi, good morning. My cornerstone story begins in the early 1980s. My wife Tammy and I were newly married, recently moved to Colorado, no kids, shopping for a church home. We did that for a while, but ultimately landed at Bethany and became members in 1983. We had our first child in the spring of '84, but it was in November of that year that the Bethany Sanctuary caught fire in the middle of the night and was literally gutted. We had no plans to leave Bethany at that time because we thought Bethany needs us. What we soon discovered was we needed Bethany. For the next 2.5 years, while the new Bethany Lutheran Church was being built, we weren't able to give a lot of our financial support to the building project, mostly because we were two young school teachers with now 2 babies at home. We could, however, find other ways to give to a church community that had already given us so much. We took on roles as youth ministers, taught Sunday school. I started playing guitar with a folk group that helped provide music for Sunday worship at the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the place we worshiped while in exile, and also played for congregational fundraising events. I was amazed at the time at how people with financial means were able to support and give to this church. But I also realized that even without financial means, as in our case, there are things to do and ways to help. And so it continued for over 40 years. Bethany has been a cornerstone in our lives. So much so that several years ago, we even decided to get our place permanently with a spot in the memorial garden, marked by our family cornerstone in a place we love, surrounded by our Bethany family and friends.
So there on the screen now is the cornerstone that I was telling all of the kids about, that I'm going to show them, that rests for the rest of this space. Dave mentioned in his video about how a fire took place here in the early 80s, and as you may or may not know, where we're seated is not the original sanctuary. That burned down, and this space was rebuilt in 1987. And as you see on the illustrator, it was really clear when they built this what the intention was. Rebuilt in faith, it says. The cornerstone of this congregation is our shared faith in Jesus Christ. Everything rests on this faith that we share and the ways that it builds up families and individuals and carries us through the decades, just as Dave talked about. And we also hear this expressed in the gospel passage that we read this morning. In that passage from Matthew, Jesus tells a very strange parable about a vineyard tenants who continually reject the messengers that the owner sends. And then after this parable, Jesus says that the stone that has been rejected has become the cornerstone. You see, that whole parable is really an analogy for all of Jesus' life. He is the Son sent to us that we continually reject, and yet, from that rejection, or from the ashes of a fire, a place like this can be built. From moments of doubt, faith can be formed. From times of struggle and hardship, new life can take root. The promise of the faith we share is that Jesus Christ can lift us up out of whatever hole we've fallen into. We are a people who confess that the power of God is at work in the cross, in rejection and struggle and death and heartache and loss, there God's power is revealed. It's a completely backward message, a totally different perspective than we hear in the rest of the world. And yet, thousands of people have gathered around that message in this place for over 100 years. We're a community of people gathered together to claim Jesus Christ as our cornerstone, on whom everything else rests. We commit our lives to following and trusting in the teachings of a first-century Jew who had no degrees, no 401k, never held public office, and yet somehow completely changed the world and continues to change our lives for the better. Stop for a moment and just recognize how unlikely and how incredible that is. Realize what a miraculous gift this community truly is. I've got one last video to share with you, and this was put together by Julie Miller, who grew up here at Bethany and is now raising her family in this place. And Julie, as you'll see, is a bit of an overachiever. And I probably, confess, didn't explain the assignment well enough to her because her video is a lot fancier and definitely took her a lot longer than Kira and Dave's, but I'm grateful for it all the same. But listen to her words about how she understands just how special this community has been for her life.
The cornerstone of my faith is Jesus Christ, and the cornerstone of my faith formation and the faith formation of my family is Bethany Lutheran Church. It started with Sunday school and mission trips and youth group. I met my husband in 5th grade in Sunday school. He was raised here too. We walked down the aisle together in the sanctuary. A few years later, we had 2 beautiful babies, and they were baptized in the sanctuary in the font. Now we bring them here for worship on Sundays, to celebrate faith milestones like First Communion, and to enjoy all the fun of VBS and day camp. And it is such a joy for my husband and I to watch our children learn about God and come to know His love and grace and forgiveness in the same place where we grew up and first learned about Jesus. Bethany is a unique and remarkable place, and it's special to so many, especially our family and hopefully yours too. It's hard not to think of the building when you think of Bethany, the brick and the beautiful stained glass. And if you know the history of Bethany, it's hard not to remember that this place once was ashes before it was built to what it is today. Now our sanctuary holds celebrations, both happy and sad. It's filled with music and worship. Our Sunday school classrooms are beautiful and have personal touches, and we have great outdoor spaces as well. Our family's favorite place is definitely the courtyard. Man, do my kids love playing out there, running around with their friends. It's just such a joyful space, filled with so many good memories and so many special moments. But you know, now that I really look closer at these photographs, I'm starting to realize that the memories and the joy and the faith that was formed in these moments really don't have much to do with the building at all. It's the people in the photographs who mean the most. It's you, the people of Bethany, who have formed my faith through mentorship, love, and support and encouragement. And now you're forming the faith of my children. You're teaching them in Sunday school and leading them through day camp. You're teaching them the words to all of the songs and helping them memorize Bible verses and showing them the deep, deep love of Christ and the beauty of His amazing grace. You, the people of Bethany, who formed my faith and are now forming the faith of my children. I thank Jesus Christ, the cornerstone of my faith, for the gift of this community, and I pray that we can continue to be His hands and feet in the lives of all who come through our doors.
Julie said it so eloquently there. Jesus Christ is the cornerstone of our faith, and this community these people, this is the place where faith continues to be practiced and built. Our church isn't perfect, but there's no denying that something special is continuing to happen here in this place. The life we share together, the joys and sorrows we accompany one another through, the faith we practice, all of it prepares us to face this life with an entirely different mindset. God is continuing to build up a community of people here who see the world differently and who then go out and change the world for the better. And you're invited to continue to be a part of that, to become a more full part of this community of faith, this place where lives are changed for the better as they are built on Jesus Christ, our cornerstone.